Tunic is one of those games that I think I ended up both respecting it and despising it by the end of my playthrough. This is a game that is uniquely adhered to a specific vision and methodology for storytelling and puzzle design, and I can't help but applaud it for its commitment. But this is, at its surface level, looks like an isometric action-adventure game, kind of like Death's Door, the Legend of Zelda games, that kind of routine. You are a fox who washes up on the shore of a mysterious island, where something is going wrong, enemies are trying to kill you, and, spoiler alert, there are a ton of MacGuffins for you to go after and collect. Combat is on the basic side. You have a dodge, you can attack and block, and the game will also introduce additional items and consumables that you can use throughout the play. But as you dig deeper into Tunic, the game begins to let itself, or let its mysteries known, in one of, I think, the most brilliant examples of a diegetic UI, or diegetic elements in a game. And it is its manual. You see, the manual of Tunic is an actual element within the world. All the pages have been ripped and strewn across the land. And the manual acts as your tutorial, your guide, your secrets menu, and even part of the lore and pacing of the story, as you'll find pages that detail more of the world around Tunic in respective areas as you uncover more of its mysteries. It is just like a brilliant element. Why? I'm going to have to give a shout to it when we have our Game of the Year, edition at the end of this year. The manual looks like something straight out of the NES era, using very expressive art, and just like hitting all those same notes and tones for it. And your job of Tunic is not only to play the game and solve its mysteries like that, but the manual itself is one giant puzzle box for you to uncover. As you've probably seen on the footage so far, the manual is mostly not in English. It is a rune-based language that you will have to decipher. And that's not a joke. There are people who have spent several hours trying to decipher the manual in order to then learn everything about the game. And that's the brilliance of Tunic right there. Literally every solution, every hint, every mechanic and system in this game is in the manual. The problem is you need to figure out how to read the manual in order to solve it. This is just basically like a 10 to 20 hour example of RTFM, essentially. And when you are starting out to play Tunic, it definitely gives that sense of mystery and wonder to the proceedings. And the game does everything it can to throw action-adventure elements in your face, and then say, okay, these are the tropes, but now we're going to go against the trope here. But then we're going to go towards the trope over here. And there is a lot to uncover in this game. And for people who want to get the true ending, oh my goodness, I hope you enjoy puzzle solving, because you're going to need to do a lot in that front. And all this is really great when it comes to playing the game. But my problem with Tunic is that in its attempt to be this kind of both modern day yet modern retro example of action-adventure gameplay, it also falls into, I think, a lot of these sins that we saw out of the golden age of adventure games, the late 80s into the late 90s era. And I want to talk about that and what it means for the enjoyment of Tunic. But we're going to take a quick break first, and as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my latest offering of books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. Despite the overwhelming cleverness of Tunic's design and storytelling and puzzle, I do have two distinct groups of issues with the game. And let's start with the quicker one. That's the general gameplay. As I said in the first part, combat and movement are on the basic side, but that doesn't ignore the fact that it can be very clunky to play. I had situations where I would hit an enemy, and before my character would recover from the animation to dodge, the enemy has already started their attack. And there are a lot of very fast responding enemies in this game, especially at the boss fights, who are notoriously bullet spongy, or sword spongy in this case. The camera definitely gets in the way, I think on purpose, in a lot of scenarios. You see, the isometric perspective is set up exclusively in some cases to block secrets or things that are, being shown or being obscured by the camera or environmental detail. And this means kind of running against a lot of walls or quote-unquote walls in order to find secrets. During several boss fights in particular, the camera would kind of pivot based off the center on kind of relation to the boss's movement. So this meant when the boss starts jumping and moving around really fast, the camera just starts spinning wildly out of control. Not only does this make this a frustrating effort to gauge perspective and depth, but it started to give me a headache and made me a little dizzy playing this game. And I did end up having to turn on invulnerability during 2 fights, just because I couldn't take that camera panning much longer. And the other group of issues have to be with the puzzle logic and puzzle design of the game, as Tunic commits one of the bigger adventure game design sins, and that is requiring outside knowledge and information in order to solve its puzzles. As I said in the first part, you have the entire manual needing to be translated from its language. My issue, for me personally, is that I have never done anything like this before. I have no reference base or knowledge base to draw from. So I couldn't solve these puzzles. And because of that, that raised the frustration factor of this game dramatically. Because like I said, the game purposely has unique rules and mechanics that are hidden in the manual for you to figure out. And you can brute force a lot of this game, no question about it. But there are cases where I had no idea how to solve this puzzle, and I had to look up the solutions online. And it became frustrating because it wasn't so much a aha moment, but a, really? That's what this solution was? And I know the audience, as we were playing, was also getting frustrated with some of these puzzles. And I wish the manual was better integrated into the UX of the game. Specifically being able to notate things on the manual, or maybe even be able to spell out or create the translation for it in the game itself. And like I said, the game requires you to go outside of it in order to solve these puzzles. Here's something that was brought up that I honestly don't know if this is true or not. I'm sure you guys watching will be able to confirm this. But one of the hints in Tunic's manual, according to somebody who was watching, who played through the entire game, was a reference to the show Lost. Now, I have never watched Lost at all, so that is another infraction on Tunic's design. Because you should never rely on the outside knowledge in order to solve a puzzle in-game. Because you cannot reliably count on everybody having the same knowledge base as you. And unfortunately, these elements definitely take a sharp hit to Tunic's enjoyment as we get into the back half of the game, when the puzzles become even more challenging, and there is an entire manual-wide puzzle for you to solve if you want the game's true ending. And at that point, I just threw my hands up and said, nope, I'm done. And unfortunately, I feel like Tunic is going to be a victim of its own cleverness. That there's going to be a lot of people who are going to give up on this game within the first 30 minutes to an hour, and they are going to miss out on so much. For those of you who love puzzle solving and all matter of deducing and critical thinking, you are going to love this game. And I would also suggest, if you want to play Tunic specifically for the puzzles and nothing else, to go into the options menu and turn on infinite health and infinite stamina, and kind of take the combat out of the equation at that point, because even the combat proved to be more frustrating as we got further in. And because of the confusing and freeform nature, it can be hard to tell whether or not you are at the appropriate level and stats to deal with the boss, or you need to come back later. And it is unfortunate that I think the game kind of gets in its own way in terms of its enjoyment, because I was really liking this game until I ran into these puzzles and situations that I had no idea how to solve. And I know some of you will argue, well, you can just go online or look up the solutions, but I feel that robs this game of the mysteries. And it kind of like with Elden Ring, that if this kind of game came out 15, 20 years ago, before the internet really blew up and online guides and so on, people could be spending months trying to dig into Tunic. And make no mistake, these are advanced and expert level puzzles that you are going to be intended to solve if you want to see this game to its actual conclusion. And I feel like, again, that the game is trying to be too clever in that respect and ignores some of the practicalities of modern UX and UI design that would make this game more, I think, enjoyable to a larger audience. So while I am spelling out a lot of doom and gloom here, like I said, if you enjoy puzzles and critical and logical or logic-based thinking, definitely play this game. But if you are somebody who's looking for a hack and slash and looking for kind of those traditional puzzle solving, Tunic is definitely above that level of enjoyment. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in to this review. To all the liking, subscribing, and commenting. If you'd like me to go your game in the future, please get in touch and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, whereas in the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.